Welcome to Spokes and Strategy, Marketing the Bicycle with Brandon Morphew and Chris Mailman of Miso Partners. Hello, welcome to another episode of Spokes and Strategy. Brandon Morphew flying solo today. We've got a great guest, and I'm super excited to be speaking with Shepard Grinker. And before we kind of get into the business side of things, is there something recently that you've done or participated in that made you smile, either in the shop or out on the trail, something that made you happy?
Yeah, well, most of my pleasure comes on the trail and not in the shop. So it's I think as most bike shop owners, it's very hard to find pleasure inside the doors these days. But uh, they they they're they're synonymous with each other. So, um, but yeah, we just finished I'm chapter leader for our local IMBA chapter, and we just cut the last 6 or 7 turns on the trail that we started building, and we built it in about 13 months. It's 3 miles in very rugged terrain, and that's a huge accomplishment. But I did get a call from one of the potential grantors today, telling me, "How can we give you money?" And
Wow.
and and we were discussing, like, okay, well, this is a rare thing. Like, okay, why are you asking? And what it boils down to is when you get stuff done and you're proactive and you're moving at a ridiculously good pace, it turns out in non-for-profits, that's what they're looking for, because the return of investment and saying that we donated this money to this organization and they did this in this very short period of time and it didn't drag on. And I think that was a huge lesson that we learned today, which is, since we're moving at such a good clip with our productivity and our volunteer crew and their paid crew, that it's just interesting to see that people want to support that, and they're doing it for selfish reasons. Let's not, I mean, it looks good on the books. So, but it was a very strange conversation, especially in the
Congratulations.
Northeast, where, as you know, mountain biking advocacy has always been a challenge. It's not as free
Yeah.
flowing as some of the Western states. So it's like, to get something like that happen was a huge, huge feather in our cap. So
Congratulations. That's
it was a good day.
fantastic.
Today was a good day.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So Shepard, owner of Tenafly Bicycle Workshop in Tenafly, New Jersey, a shop that's got a great reputation, known for a high level of craftsmanship without the pretentiousness. Now, before bikes, you spent 20 years as a CNC machinist and applications engineer, something I didn't know about you,
Mm-hmm.
working in precision environments where room temperature affected the final product. And you're bringing that same meticulous care into every service bay and every customer interaction. And then beyond the shop, you've spent nearly a decade leading Bergen County's largest NICA youth group mountain bike team. You're running the local IMBA chapter, and you're running, as you mentioned, running multiple trail building efforts across New Jersey and New York. You're someone that's not just shaping the bikes, but you're also really shaping the ecosystem around us. So thank you for your work, and it's great to have you on. I really appreciate
Thank you.
you being here. Uh, so you spent all that time in engineering, machine shop, and how'd you kind of get into the bike world? What brought you?
Well, so I've always been a cyclist since I was a kid. I think if you look deep enough on our blog on our website at bicycleworkshop.com, you can see, and it's kind of it's not front facing. Got to search for it a little bit. I've been told by our marketing director that we want to limit our clutter, so I've buried some things. But my dad and my earliest childhood experience was riding on the back of my dad's rally 3-speed across the Brooklyn Bridge, and looking down through this. At the time, it was the early '70s, and the bridge was not in great shape. New York in general in the early '70s was not in great shape, and I just remember seeing the boards on the Brooklyn Bridge were rattling and not tight, and so like it was stuff like that. Like you could theoretically fall to your death while riding across the Brooklyn Bridge at the time. Um, but I remember that was my earliest memory. So I was into bikes from the get go, and just have always sort of stayed sort of passionate about it. The technology as much as the riding. Through age, my fitness has declined like everyone else. So the technology has still stayed forefront, and so is my passion for riding. Although I don't do as much. I do probably build more trails than I do mountain bike these days, or road bike or gravel bike. But I still have the passion, and throughout my time as an engineer, that passion remains. So I was pretty adamant when I moved. My wife and I moved from California to the back east to be closer with our families, um, and it was at that point in time where I had to take a break from my work, which was putting me on the road a lot. I had two little kids, and so I took a break. The bike shop became available for sale, and I figured, hey, what a good way to segue into retirement from by owning a bike shop in 2013, not knowing what was in store for us moving into 2014 through now, which was going from a healthy retail environment to a turbulent retail environment. So, but at the time, it seemed like a smart idea to spend my time doing what my passion was. I did learn that not everybody that rides bikes is nice. It was a hard lesson that didn't take very long, because all of the people that I'm friends with, and that all of my deep friendships and long term friendships are all pretty much around bikes. So I thought that every biker was cool, but
Mhm.
turns out there's good ones and there's bad ones, just like the rest of society.
There's
So
people. Yeah.
yeah, but it's been a fun journey. And I bought the bike shop. I basically cashed out my 401k that I worked on for years. And I think the interesting thing was when we bought the shop, it was uh, we were able to identify like customer service issues that right off the bat, just by going in as a secret shopper when I was in the asset purchase agreement process, and seeing the small areas that could be fixed were very simple. Just having a cleaner work environment, having a cleaner shop, and just being friendly and nice to people, and being grateful that they were coming into your store. Obviously with online shopping coming on short, I mean, it was like literally Amazon started selling bike parts in 2015 or 2014. We bought the shop in 2013, and so the ability to the need to really be more provide a better customer experience was even more important than it had been in the past. So we identified some low hanging fruit and decided we were going to go for it. And within 2 years, I think we doubled our profit from when we bought when they the previous owner. So it was really easy. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying the
Yeah.
work was easy, but it was easy to fix the problem.
Yeah. It's interesting. You make me think of, I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of the beginner's mind, and sort of like the coming into something new, you have a really fresh perspective. And is there anything you do in your business to sort of like revisit that beginner's mind? Is there anything you do like on an annual basis, or even like, just periodically, that you can kind of pause and, or have you taken stock of sort of where you are? Are there any things that are those things today that you might be, they turn into wallpaper over time, right? Is there anything in your business that have you done that recently?
We do it all the time. I mean, it's
Do
a
it all the time.
constant. It's like there's two things. There's really two. I always say, my bike shop as well as my trail building organization and our 501c3, we're a speedboat in a shipping lane is what I like to say, because whereas a large freight ship, in order for it to change directions, like something like a company like YT or Jensen USA or any one of these companies, in order for them to change directions and adapt adapt to new market trends, it takes a little bit more effort. Where as I found early on that it was easy for us to quickly adapt to market changes. That being said, I haven't done the best job because, unfortunately, when I bought the shop, I was in my 40s, and now I'm in my 50s. So I found that my desire to quickly put a lot of effort into reinventing things has been a little bit sluggish. And you've seen this as we're working together, which is like my free time is still my free time, and if I have to work 80 hours to 100 hours to achieve greatness, I'm not willing to do that at this point in time.
Yeah.
So, but for
Yeah.
the most part, I've always approached the bike shop similar to the way I approached engineering, which was a problem solving, which is to identify what the issue is and to try to rectify it as quickly as possible. And that's what engineering and machining is all about, which is figuring out how to address certain issues. Like I said, though, to be transparent, as I get older and I want to spend more time with my family and more time in outdoors and doing things um, that I potentially I spend less time reinventing the wheel every year. So I've got to be a little bit more creative, but and also to assess the fact that we're a small business and we're going to remain a small business. I'm not looking on taking over the world with a bike shop. I just want to have a healthy business that supports the community and that allows me to do the things that I love to do and supports my employees, which is important.
I think you hit on a really good point. That being nimble as a small business is one of your strongest. Being able to turn quickly, adjust to change. I love working with you because you are open to doing things different. To trying new things and to you know, and I think a lot of folks are challenged with this in general, and the world has changed. I mean, you've seen it in the did you say like 12 years, 13 years that you've been in business? Things have changed, right? I mean, like this is a fundamentally different business, operating environment, and so doing things different is essential. So I commend you for that. I also think it's a really good insight, is that that you have that as a small
Yeah, I
business.
mean, a good example was when we first really started pushing things. We were the first real mountain bike shop in our area that sort of mimicked what you get out in Colorado and California with some of these more boutique, cool shops that we had visited. Me and my business partner Kevin had visited, and we sort of fell in love with a certain style, and we sort of built the shop around that style. And basically were into mountain bikes, and so we really pushed it more than road. And at the time it was road. There was no gravel. And again, we were at the forefront of having, and when you worked for Da Vinci at the time, you'll remember coming in our store, and it was a cool vibe. It was something you probably didn't see all that often in New England. So
No.
so like we prided ourselves in that. I mean, again, we're like the problem with the speedboat in a shipping lane is you've got to always keep the engine moving pretty fast. So it's like, and the I mean, no pun intended, but we have to reinvent the wheel quite often. I mean, when the gravel craze hit, we were like way ahead. We were already, we were we had our foot on the gas probably 18 months
Yeah.
before anybody else had even knew what that class of bikes was. We had flared bars. We were using mountain bike wheels on road bikes at the time and stuffing the tires in. So again, I mean, not that we were cutting edge, but we sort of were able to quickly adapt and get behind that. Now, going back the other way, mountain bikes are sort of not as popular as they were. They're sort of they've hit a plateau. I think the pandemic did that, and we're struggling. I'm gonna be transparent. We've dug our heels in with not selling tri bikes and selling road, but selling reasonable road as opposed to ridiculously high end bikes that really are just more of less utilized than they could be. But it's been a challenge and it's been fun. But yeah,
What do you? So there's a lot of pressure there. And one of the things I've always been um, admired about you and the shop is you guys have a phenomenal Google rating, which is it's really hard to do, but and you have a lot of reviews, so it's not like you're not working with a small sample size. So having that reputation, I think you do a lot of work on the customer service. But what are some of the pressures or challenges that come with that, especially as you're seeing a shift in consumer behavior? Mountain bikes have plateaued. I mean, I think there's still a really sizable market, addressable market. I think people are still out there and riding and excited about mountain bikes. I think it probably the consumer's changing a bit. I think there are some things happening that are worth it, but thinking about that, knowing that this is changing, knowing that you have, built this reputation, you kind of have this feel, the shop, is this what are you doing, or what kind of challenges are you facing right now?
I mean, I think e-bike advocacy has been a challenge for us as of recently. I think, being in the East Coast, specifically in the Northeast, um, it's either looked the other way or it's not really addressed. We're always late to the game when it comes to dealing with this type of thing, and being, I mean, we were we've seen a real challenge with that, is providing places for people to ride e-bikes, and addressing that as a market. We were definitely late to the game when it came to e-mountain bikes, just because we were still pedaling, and and to some degree we got caught in a trap, and we're purists, and we're just like, this
Mhm.
is not going to catch, this is not going to catch, and sort of got hit like a deer in a headlight, and had to quickly adapt. But I mean, that's one of those things that's been, it's been tough. I mean, it's like especially there's certain brands. The S brand, for example, just has a huge market hold around here, and it's like hard to sell against it. Um, so that's been a little bit of a challenge, but for the most part, it's. I mean, uh, I find that's one of those things that. Um, the consumer's confused about it too. I mean, I think that's another thing. Just in the East Coast, it's been, it's picking up. The product also isn't really conducive to where we ride. I mean, as you know, in Massachusetts, you've got short, punchy climbs, and you've got
Mhm.
steep technical descents. And a full power e-bike doesn't really do well there. So it's like the mid power e-bikes, for example, like, which is not a global seller, it, is been has been what we need here. We don't need, we need range, for example. We don't need a lot of power to punch up things. It's just you're just changing directions and changing uh, altitude too quickly. So it's those little
Mhm.
things like that. That's been on our radar, and we were late. I'm not going to BS you. We were late. Um,
Yeah.
but that's sort of at the forefront right now, is you know the cycling industry in general, has moved. There's really two groups that I see. There's the younger group that don't really have the experience of growing up and going to a butcher shop and a hardware store and having a retail experience. They go to Home Depot or Walmart or big box stores, Costco. They buy their stuff online. They're looking for best price. They don't necessarily have the money to buy the more expensive stuff. So there's that challenge. And then you've got this group in their 40s and 50s that have sort of we've built our business around, that they're phasing out. They're not into cycling as much. E-bikes are prolonging that, but that's really that's one of those things that we find there's a big gap. There's that 25 to 37 probably in age group that like you're really having a tough time getting them to A, come into your store, and then B, loyal customers and understand the benefit of having a retail store that's giving back. We've tried to bridge that gap. One of my goals was I spent so much time with my advocacy group, and I was just giving and giving and giving and not taking anything from it. And we've decided to merge the two together and associate what we're doing with the advocacy group with the shop, for fiscal
Mhm.
reasons, quite honestly. I know it sounds
Yeah.
cheap, but I have to, in order for us to stay in business, we have to let people know that we're building these trails. My shop is building these trails. It's not just It's not just a group of people. It's, you know, it's my shop
Yeah.
and a group of people that are doing it. So these are the challenges that we're facing now. But having a community business is very important to us as well. Our logo that's on the bottom of our homepage and every page on our website is, you know, to build more to get more people on bikes and find more places for them to ride on them. That's Bergen County, where we're located, has 0 miles of mountain bike trails, legal mountain bike trails, 0 miles. And that's as a mountain bike shop, that was the first thing I decided we had to fix, and I had to do it. If I had to do it personally, and while other shops around us just ignored it and just sent their customers out to, and gave them directions to the illegal trails, we said we were going to try to do things differently and do things by the books. And that's paid off, I think. We are associated with advocacy, which helps most of the time.
Do you find it difficult to switch between the different hats? Like, I'm shop owner today, I'm trail advocate, trail builder tonight, that kind of, you know, social chameleon walking, because some of it is you end up at town hall meetings or, city council meetings, and you're talking about how to get trails built, on public land and city property. And this is all, a different environment. Do you find it,
Yeah, I mean,
challenging?
for a man, and I think that's sort of what I was getting at before. In the past, I divided them very specifically. I said, "This is I'm not going to if I'm out with a volunteer group, I'm not going to push my shop's agenda on these people. They're here to build. I don't want to alienate them. If they have affinity to another bike shop, I don't want them to feel like they're not welcome to come help dig." But as those people stopped coming, and coming back around, or some of them still came back around, and my bike shop, became, and I put so much time and effort into that, it became a lot easier to make that switch and to say, hey, your bike is, if we're riding to the, it happened the other day. We were riding to do digging work. I call it RDR, ride, dig, ride, because you ride in, you dig for a while, and then you ride out. So it's sort of
Hmm.
a dual, and I actually made hot cocoa. So that was the HC. So it was ride, dig, hot cocoa ride. But the interesting, I heard someone's bike was making a lot of noise, and I'm not bashful anymore. I'm like, I even have printed out uh, free, like a free inspection and 10% off of
Hmm.
suspension service, that I always carry
Nice.
with me. I had no qualms about handing that out. So it's been much easier for me to make that transition. And it's part of it's out of desperation, and part of it is because is the pride my shop takes in these efforts. Like it's unprecedented what we're doing in Orange County. It's reached a national level in terms of its attention, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool that a bike shop was able to really make that happen. So I'm proud of it, and so I'm not going to hide it anymore.
Well, I think it's fantastic that it's working, right? Like, I think that you've mentioned that it has impacted the business positively. What did it look like? How did you get it going? What did it look like when you started?
So the organization is called Palisades MTB, and there was a group of us that met at a restaurant that was bike shop themed. They're no longer in business. At least one of the restaurants isn't. It was called Velo, and we all met. We discussed, we wanted moving the ball forward and getting legal trails in our area. I was uninvited from the group because I was a bike shop owner, and the original group felt that they did not want to alienate other bike shops. So I sat by and watched them do their thing for about 2 years. The group kind of broke up. One guy moved to Sweden, one guy moved somewhere else, one guy got into politics. It sort of was starting to fade. And me and the existing president had a conversation. I said, well, why don't we fire this thing up and see what we got? And so we did. And we hunted for projects. And it was like the not in my backyard is through the roof in Bergen County. It's like uh, it's pretty impressive how people will make up lies and stuff to keep you from finding a good place for kids to do stuff. We tried to build a pump track in one of the local towns here, and there was like we were like an outside organization building a BMX racetrack and promoting drug use. It was like
Yeah.
the NIMBYs, as we call them, were, came out in full force. Um, and so we kept on banging our heads against a wall, and then finally, we had motion in Sterling Forest State Park, and we said, has anybody ever asked the state if we can build with mechanized equipment? Because right now they built 8 miles. It took them 8 years to do it, or 7 years to do it. And that's just who's like, I can't. I'll be 80 by the time the master plan called for 45 miles. I'm like, this is going too slow for me. So we went to the state.
Your kids'
We
kids will
went
be able
Yeah,
to
we
enjoy
went
it.
to New York State. We said, hey, is there any objection to using machines? And they said to us, we thought you'd never ask. And it was at that point in time that because the state wanted to have and this is my point that I made earlier about people wanting to throw money at us, to have a master plan sitting for 25 years unexecuted doesn't look good. And to have a
No.
local user group come in and do the brunt of the paperwork, do the brunt of the fundraising, organize volunteer crews to build the trails and to do all this stuff, and to do it at a rapid pace. I mean, I think the first trail we built was a mile in very rocky terrain. Like you couldn't walk through it. It was really hard. Um,
Mhm.
and we put the trail in I think it was like 4 months. To go in there and do this work in such a incredible pace was just it was just amazing to the park. And then we just immediately had a good reputation, and it just keeps spiraling and spiraling and getting better and better. So it's so gratifying, because in a world where you're just constantly up against things that are slowing you down, to just have all of the stars aligned, everyone is in favor of it. There's really very few objections to what we're doing. I mean, almost no objections. And everyone's enjoying it. They're like, they love it. We get emails and texts and messages all the time, which is like, you guys are doing God's work. It's like and you're doing it at such a fast pace that it just makes it really fun. It's just so awesome. So, I mean, that was Palisades MTB. We got it, and now we're being asked to look at other projects in different areas because of it, because they know, the local managers, we have a reputation of what we
Yeah.
can accomplish. So it's just fun to be part of, and it's just fun. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is we had an event. Again, I'll stop talking about it. But we had an event 3 weeks ago, which was a group ride where we rode the new trail, and we brought 100 and I think 18 people signed up, and about 100 showed up. And the original crew that started it were all there. They had started the project in their late 90s, and they all were there together. And they were like, like we were like, I mean, not to say we were all patting ourselves in the back, but like, they thought it would never happen. They were like, there's no way. There was so much opposition 20 years ago, and even 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and to see like the tides turn, and it's a nice thing. I mean, I live in New Jersey, but New York State is very progressive when it comes to finding outdoor space for its citizens, more so than a lot of states out in the East Coast. The pandemic really thrust them even further far forward, because they realized there was a public health crisis, a mental health crisis, that could get resolved by getting more people exposed to nature, and even making picnic areas for people to get out of the city to go have a picnic was a huge priority for not in New York, just in New York City, but Rochester and other parts of the state, which were depressed at the time after the pandemic. And it's just really cool. It's really fun to be part of.
Yeah, it is really cool. And I think, just in general, I think that's one of the wonderful things about the bike is getting outdoors, being able to, get out into whether it's in the woods or trails, bike paths or out on the road. It's one of my favorite parts. The neat thing about this, and I want to, just maybe pick one of these things because I think, you've done a lot of different things to help build community, and then also to help build the business. So I love the idea of like getting involved with NICA. I think that's, that's obviously to do with your son and, kind of a family component, I think. But between that and then, doing the online service, the booking online service, which is a new endeavor for you, but I think it's a really exciting one. And then, uh, this trail building, is there one of these things that you would say has had an oversized impact on the business?
I think I mean, you kind of pushed me for months to look at the online booking, and I didn't really believe it. And I'm still not 100% sold on it, but I'm finding um, some of the things that booking service. So, to give a little bit of a background for anybody that's listening, we've started booking service on through our website. We're testing out different back end softwares to do it. We're in the process of looking at two of them. We've already started working with one of them. It's been a very good experience, and what we're finding is that just like everyone else that's busy, they get home. People get home from work. They sit down, they have their dinner, they get on their phone, maybe they scroll, they do some doom scrolling, they see one of our posts pop up. They remember the bike shop. Maybe they go to our website, see what our hours are, and then the first thing they see is that they can book their service tonight and drop their bike off tomorrow, or the next day, or whenever the next availability is. And we're finding, and you told me this was going to happen, and I sort of hesitantly believed you, but we're finding that that's actually happening. We're finding that the booking is happening at hours that the shop is not open. And again, anytime, any chance you can. So I've had this conundrum, right? Because I don't want to have it be an online retailer. I don't want to do that. We want to have a bike shop where we see people, we have interactions with people. Like, I could have done the online retailing thing 10 years ago when Worldwide Cyclery was doing it, and when Bike Fanatic, and
Mhm.
when Jensen was doing it. But
Yeah.
we didn't want that. Like, and maybe it sounds stupid or naive that we walked away from all that business, but like, we loved the social interactions that we had with our customers, and we didn't want to dilute that for something else. But the booking of service it automates things, but it keeps us engaged with the customers when they come in, and it allows them to, like I said, be sitting and having a beer or drinking a glass of wine or whatever they're doing, and book service, and it makes them, and not to, and again, I'm very transparent. They're putting money down. We're making them give a deposit
Mhm.
on service, so they've got to come in, and they do. And that's
Mhm.
been the most. And again, we're in the off season right now, so we're not seeing a lot of it, but we're seeing more than we expected, with very little promoting. So that being said, we know that this is going to snowball when we come out in the spring, have pretty heavily. And so
I think,
you pushed me earlier, and I could never have achieved it in
yeah.
June and July. But right now, this is the time that we're having to really like debug it, figure out what's working,
Yeah.
figure out how to use the system, figure out which system we want. As you know, we've done a little bit of shopping, so it's like to figure out like how we're going to do it and how we're going to implement it and how we're going to make it a fun process. We came across something yesterday on our website. It's going to go live probably tomorrow, which is you can build your own work order. So you can select the items that you want to have done to your bike, like a menu. In fact, I've redesigned our website from having just straight service, that it has menu items, a la carte items, and it has your dessert menu to choose from. So like, we've gone as far as like, and then you can design your own work order. Like, okay, this is what I want done on my bike, and a lot of it is to book it, but a lot of it we found is the interesting thing was, they see that a tune-up is $120, for example. They think that's a lot of money, but let me go on and just do two front and rear derailleur adjustment, front and rear brake adjustment, and then there's some like, wait, I'm at $100 now, and I need to get my flat fixed. Oh wait, now I'm at 125. Well,
Yeah. You're
right,
there
yeah,
already.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
there
It
already,
just, it all
and
adds up.
I'm not getting my wheels trued. they're not going through the rest of my bike. They're not doing a safety check. They're
Yeah.
not wiping it down, and they're not doing a test ride on it for $120. So they
I
can
think,
sort of feel the value in all of that. So that's one of those things that we just, I mean, that just happened yesterday, I think. So
yeah,
it's like,
I love
what's
that.
that?
It's really good. I love that. And I think the insight there for me that when I hear that is, you saying you don't want to be involved in online, which I totally get. Like that's not where you want to be. You want social interactions. I think what good technology does is it allows you to have these more authentic and more robust and easier social interactions, right? So it gets
Right.
people into the shop. I think that's to me is like where are those? Like more of those, please. Where do we find
Right.
those things that can bring people in and bring community together in a positive way and make people's lives easier, but also get them into the shop with less friction. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to
And
hear that's a
we
great
also
one.
just implemented, because the software we're using is Hub Tiger, and they have it's a South African company. There's a little bit of issues with the way they name things. They call it
Mhm.
collections, which is pickup. I'm trying to get them to change
Mhm.
that because I'm like, collections is not a good thing in the United States. If you get sent to collections, you don't want that. I don't want to schedule a collection. I want to schedule a pickup. So we're trying to get that. Also, none of my employees knew what a flat number was. That was one of those things. But they have a drop off and a pickup and delivery, which is one of those things that in the off season we're going to basically do for free just to get work in the door. And so they have all that stuff built in. Um, which is pretty cool. So we can have delivery, we can have a free delivery for the winter, and then when things start to pick up, we can start to charge for that. But again, we still have that interaction with the customer. It's not as good as having them come in the store if we have to pick up and drop off, but for the most part, like it's still engaging in sales and in with our customers. And a lot of times, they'll do a pickup, but they won't do a drop off. And so, or they'll drop off the bike, but they want us to deliver it later. Maybe they don't have a bike rack. Maybe they don't have a hitch rack for their car. It happens a lot, but it's really neat to sort of start offering these things. And really, again, it's really about providing, making it easier for customers to ride bikes. I mean, that's really what we want to do more than anything else. Stay busy. Our employees. I want them to have a good life and to have and have and not feel like they're under the gun. And I provide my employees with insurance and workman's comp and everything else, so it's feel like they have a home that they feel comfortable with,
Yeah,
and they have security to stay. I have all of my employees have been with me for many many years. I don't have any seasonal guys. We just don't do it.
I think that's a big reason. That's a big reason you have the 4.9
Yes.
stars. So
Right.
question, and this is sort of like big picture, it's visualization. 5 years from now, what does the shop look like? What does the cycling community look like?
I hope I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I got five. I
What,
don't
what,
think
what
I
would
have
you like?
5 years left.
What would you? What would you like it to look? Well, even if it wasn't, if you weren't there, what would you
I
like it
mean,
to look?
I
What
hope
would
I
what
have.
would what would success look
Honestly, I
like for
would
you?
hope I would have involvement in the store until I'm done riding bikes.
Hmm.
Uh, I think. I think honestly, if we could incrementally grow a little bit every year, and have, I just, this is the pessimistic side of me, which is like I feel like it's so much work to run a small business, and there's so many things
Hmm.
against you that it's like at a certain point in time, if without good leadership and without good, without stamina, like things get really challenging. So it's like when you say 5 years, I'm like, no, no, 5 years, three. Let's talk 3 years.
Okay.
That's
What do you
more
think about
palatable
three?
for me.
What would a good improvement in the cycling community around you look in 3 years? What would be a good like future if you could
Well,
design it? What would you like to
I mean,
see?
my goal is the trails that we're building at Sterling are going to Sterling Forest, which is in Tuxedo. It's in Tuxedo and Sloatsburg. That's where it borders the two
Mhm.
towns in New York, and then it's not too far from Warwick. And to actually have have those local communities understand there's an economic viability to what we're doing there, and then to have a second location there. and to really serve those towns that are really embracing this. And to get back to what we love, which is doing custom bikes. We've for many years I had a 25 to 35 bike demo fleet, which was very, very
Hmm.
fun because it helped sell bikes. And we did it again for selfless reasons that I had bought at the time like a $4,000 or $5,000 Merlin that didn't fit me, and then I didn't get to
Hmm.
test ride. And we've sort of decided, like, we were like, hey, we never want to have a customer have that happen again. We want to basically, before someone spends that kind of cash on a bicycle, they should have a chance to ride it. So we prided ourselves in having the largest demo fleet probably in the East Coast. As when you were with Da Vinci, I think we
Hmm.
had a full
Yeah,
size
you
run of
guys, it was
hatchets. I had a full size run
big
of
big
yeah, yeah,
van.
and we had
Yeah.
a van. So we would, I'd like to get back to that. That's a very because that also that demo, having a demo fleet and having really drew like what I keep talking about, which is getting more customer interactions and meeting new people because people would drive from Philly or from Boston because they could test ride a Yeti, an Ibis, a Da Vinci at the time. We used to have,
Hmm.
for a while, we had Pivot, we had Santa Cruz, and I will also say that we moved away from those brands on our side. The,
Hmm.
they didn't do it, we did it. We just loved Ibis and Yeti so much, and the way they rode, and the relationship we had with those companies. We now have Mondraker, which is very much has that old school sort of American feel to it that we haven't felt, even though they're from Spain. They're very they're embracing the local bike shop and the direct and steering clear of the direct to consumer model, which we love. We have to have it. I'd like to see a more level playing field with product coming from overseas. I mean, that's one of those things. It's a real challenge. Like the direct to consumer model
Yeah.
has been a real challenge. There's nothing we can do about it. It is the way it is. I think you're seeing, with the fluctuations with some of the brands that have really embraced it hard, like YT and Canyon. A little bit of circling of the wagons because um, Americans they'll spend 45 minutes trying to assemble an IKEA dresser and run out of patience. I don't know how we're going to deal with bikes. So
Yep.
we're not we, we don't roll up our sleeves and just get at it sometimes. So we see
Yeah.
and we see a lot of those bikes come into our store. And those are challenging customers as well because they save money on their bikes and they come into the store and they're expecting to save money on service too. And we're like, well, you can't have both. So, but I'd like to see us get back to more level playing field and really sort of have, the demo fleet was huge for us because, like I said, we had people coming from, far distances to test ride two or three bikes in one shot. And especially if the Sterling thing really, if it gets to where we want it to be, which is we're very close, we're about halfway there.
Hmm.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
you'll have a location where you could go really test these bikes out and get a real sample of what they are. We used to do guided demos, which was a huge thing, which got an employee out of the shop to take a customer out on a ride, so they were not lost
Hmm.
if they were traveling from a distance. That was really cool because
Yeah.
you got out to ride with the customer. We had at one point in time we had a 90% closure rate with guided rides,
Wow.
guided demos. So if we
Wow.
took a customer,
I mean,
yeah, we took a customer out on the trail,
that's a lot.
and they, just they
They
bought
bought
a
a
bike,
bike.
pretty much.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I love it. I love that, and I think there's some value there. I imagine it's expensive to do that. So there's probably a component around cost that investment. But I'd love to hear and help if you need it. I'd love to hear more about that. Um, One thing I'm curious about, is there anything that in the bike industry specifically that you think shops overlook? There's things that like they miss when they're either customer interactions, maybe it's marketing, maybe it's
Um,
operations. Is there anything you think
yeah, I mean,
shops
there's a lot
miss?
of things. I mean, the customers. I think it was. I want to say it was National Bicycle Dealers Association had a document that they put out. I want to say 5 or 6 years ago that were really asking bike shop employees and owners to really think hard about when someone is in your store, why are they there? And I think that beating that message down in my own head and then you know re reiterating it to my employees isn't something that has to happen often. Which is they're in your store. Why are they there? They had because they had the option or the opportunity to do everything they wanted online now. They don't have to leave their homes anymore, but they're there. So why are they there? And to identify those things and to embrace those things, and it leads to like fun interactions with people. Finding out that their goldfish died, um, and they're sad. Um, and again, a lot of times they're sad and it's not something that's fun. But
Mhm.
you dig into a customer's life and why they're there and why they wanted to come into the bike shop and shoot the breeze. Um, and then,
Mhm.
of course, we laugh about it afterwards. So that's where the joy comes in. But that's really the important thing to me and my employees, which is like, okay, you're here for a reason, and we need to embrace that reason. You're here because you want to have a social interaction, as opposed to have a computer interaction or an interaction with someone online. So that's one thing, and then even more so, that's the challenge is to teach, to give people like I hate to sound old, but to give kids and that younger group that I'm talking about, to give them a good enough customer service experience that they're like, oh wow, I've never had this before, or when I go into the Apple store, I don't get treated this nice, or I went to go to Foot Locker to buy some sneakers and I didn't get treated this way. This is cool. I like this. I want to have more of this, and I think that's you see that in our reviews, which is that like and again, it's not always the money makers that write the good reviews. Usually it's not. It's the people that we're actually, spending too much time with, and really coddling them, sadly enough. But that's kind of how it works. Is like, you really want to provide someone with a different experience than they're used to. And I know a common experience that people don't think about, but as a bike shop owner, I spend probably 3 times a year. I'll go to the mall and I'll go into different stores and I will sample the experience that most customers have when they go into a retail environment. And that's a huge, huge thing, especially in Bergen County in New Jersey, where we have a lot of malls, is to go in and just be like, wow, this is terrible. Or this was great. Um, I had a great experience at the Van store in one of the local malls here. And I was like, that was really fun. Like, I want to go back. Like, the people were cool. They were like, and like I wanted to, I ended up putting more stuff on the counter because I wanted to stay there longer. Like, that's the kind of thing that I think more bike shop and retailers really need to think about is like how to, really not only control the customer service experience, but to make it fun for yourself. I think that that's an important thing. If it's not fun, if it's you're just going through the motion just to get the business, then you should get out of the business and do something else. Do something that's not customer service oriented. There's a lot of bike shops, and that's one of the and I'm also the reason I say that is because I'm looking at all these bike shops that go out of business, and they're all the ones that are going out of business have you look at the reviews and they're terrible. People had a bad experience, and so they're no longer it's no longer working. Um, and so that those are the things that I find, and then and if you look at people's complaints about bike shops, why they buy from companies like Canyon and YT, it's because they've had a lot of those experiences. And so, how can you rectify that, and still be profitable and still keep your doors open? I mean, that's the other challenge is look at how much it costs to rebuild your motorcycle suspension versus how much it costs to rebuild a mountain bike suspension. And it's like it's you've talked to a motorcycle mechanic, like, I don't want to go near mountain bikes. The parts are too small. I can't get my hands on them. I drop
Yeah,
parts all the time.
they're all motorcycle shock companies for the most part anyway,
Right.
right? I mean, they're in the same place. Well, I really appreciate your time. This has been fantastic, and your insights. I think for me, like the speedboat in a shipping channel. I love the keep the motor running. The insight there, the not in my the nibbies. I think I've heard that before, but the not in my backyard folks, I think that's everywhere. I think about the projects we've had here, and it's part of the culture. People don't want they don't want someone in their backyard, even though it's research says it's a lot safer if there's people
Right.
around and stuff. Anyway,
Yep.
all these things. I love the online. You don't want to be an online guy, but you're using the technology for bringing people in and making it that frictionless experience. I think that's great. And it's obvious that you take care of your team, you take care of your people. That's a big reason why you have such a good reviews and good rankings. You take care of your customers. So I really appreciate your time. I think people can find you in Tenafly, New Jersey. You're at bicycleworkshop.com, and I really appreciate your time and anyone and everyone who's listening. And if you found it valuable, please share it with another shop. Someone who'd enjoy it. And we'll see you next
Cool.
time. So
Thanks, man.
thank you.